Hey y'all, this is some information about my VA claim for PTSD. Now, the information that I'm going to go over today is valid on the date of this publication. So if you see this video a week, a month, 6 months, a year from now, check the websites. Things may change. The government changes their rules, the VA changes their rules, and I just want to make sure you guys get it right. All right, let me get to it. All right, so what I figured out is first you got to go to the Code of Federal Regulations. This is the CFR, and this is nothing special. You go to ecfr.gov, and you're going to find your condition or the category of your condition, right? So we're here in mental disorders. So diagnosis of mental disorders, they're going to go through that. Evaluation of disability and mental disorders, right? And then you can go through all these different ones. It tells you which ones were removed, which ones are still being rated by the VA. Now, here is the general rating formula for mental health disorders, right? So when you get in here, you can get a 0%, you can get a 10, a 30, a 50, a 70, and a 100, right? So get in here and read this. You're going to understand what you should be focusing on during the claim process, right? Because if you are just shooting from the hip and going in and figuring I'm going to put in a claim and get my connection, you may not be communicating yourself correctly or your condition, right? So my recommendation is try not to shoot yourself in the foot. Educate yourself the best you can. Get medical treatment from somebody you trust. If that's the VA, that's the VA. If that's another doctor, go for it. But you need to work with a mental health professional, a doctor, to track the severity and the condition as it affects your life, right? And, things change, but if you track it, you're going to know where you are, right? And kind of understand it better. All right. So here's the VA website, right? Disability compensation for PTSD, right? So we know we can go from a 0 with this to 100, right? If you have all your information, if you know what you're going for, if you know what you need to explain to people, display to people, there's a lot of work for you to do, right? So first you need to file a claim for PTSD. Okay, what does the VA consider to be a traumatic event, right? So we're talking combat experiences, sexual assault or harassment, traumatic personal interactions, and other traumatic events. I know somebody from service that was in the Navy, and he was pulling bodies out of the water after something happened on his ship. He got PTSD from that. I know a person that was on liberty or leave and was in a car accident with a car full of people, and that happened during service, and he was later connected for PTSD and TBI, but that's a whole nother story. So it gets down to how do you file your claim for compensation? Come to this website, va.gov. You can file it online, or you can start to fill out the forms in purple, right? Sometimes if you're too old, if you can't do it, if you don't want to do it, you might be able to work with somebody, maybe a youth, a social worker, a VA rep. There's a lot of people that help with compensation claims, right? But start to fill out the information, because that's one step in the process of doing your claim, right? So the other form they talk about here, we're going to go to that now, is the 0781, right? Statement in support of claimed mental health disorders due to an in-service traumatic event, right? Basically, if you're claiming a mental health condition, the VA is going to look through your medical records and your service records and try to narrow down if you were ever treated for this condition or if you ever were in a traumatic event, right? So say the guy I talked about with the car accident, he was able to prove this event happened because he was treated in the hospital thereafter and there was a police report, right? So he could prove that happened. Now, maybe not every event, you're going to be able to prove happened. So, or you're going to have difficulties doing that. It may not be in your service records or your medical records. Now, they're going to use this document, the 0781, right? And let me go to that. I think I have a copy here. They're going to go to this document, and you're going to fill it out, and you're going to kind of give them the breadcrumbs, right? So let's start at the top here. Service member's name, right? Section 2 is this combat, personal, right? Or other traumatic events, right? Now you're going to get down to this section and you're going to give a brief description, a location, maybe some dates. You gotta help them find the event. I can't tell you how many veterans I've talked to that said, yeah, I put in a claim. Well, was there any proof it happened? Did you provide the VA any breadcrumbs? Because they will do military record search and find, was this person in combat? Did this person go through this? Sometimes I've seen somebody talk about sending in newspaper clippings. You can also get support letters, right? Buddy statements from other people that served there. Now, if you were in combat, they're going to see the combat tour on your DD-214. It's going to be in your military records. They're going to see your shot records. They're going to know where you went and where you were. But if you need help saying this event happened, the 0781 is going to help you. So continue down the document, fill it out the best you can. Some people are really annoyed with these documents, but this is what helps the VA find if there was an issue there. Right? And like I said, if these documents are difficult to fill out, have a family member, a friend, someone that understands, fill it out for you. I know even going through this stuff can be a little triggering, a little jarring, a little emotional, right? It's never easy. So the document is going to want signatures, right? It's a 7-page document. It's not too bad. Okay, on to the next part. This is officially how to file a VA disability claim, right? So what I'm going to need to do is make sure I'm eligible for this claim. I'm a veteran? Check, yes. Now, what evidence do I need to support my claim? VA medical records. Am I receiving treatment for this condition? Do I have a diagnosis of this condition that I can share with the VA, right? Do I need supporting statements for this condition? How do I submit evidence with my claim? You can do that, and I'm going to go over that a little later. Now, to apply, you can open up an account and apply online, or you can download the VA form 21-526EZ, right? And you can also direct upload it. You can fax it in, it seems like. And they have more links for information. Okay, so let's go to the 526EZ. All right, so you go to vaforms.gov or va.gov, and you can come here and download the form and other forms that you need. And here's the form, 15 pages long, but I think the information that you have to start filling out is on page 12. Right? So if you don't like paperwork, that's fine. Get somebody to help you to do this, right? I've actually sat down with veterans themselves, and their hands were so shaky they didn't even want to fill out the document, so I would do a form, you know. Read it, understand it, and let's get down. Oh my gosh, so much information. Okay, nope, page 9. I was wrong, it wasn't page 12. Okay, most important things on these documents, right? You don't got to get every box right, but just start at the top and work your way down. Standard claim process, name, social, have you ever filed a claim before? A VA file number is actually your social security number. Now, before a certain date, I believe some of the veterans had a VA file number before they started using their social security number. Birth date, telephone number. I don't think we're going to deal with BDD claims because I'm already out of service, right? Address. Make sure you do the right phone number. Make sure you do an address that you can receive mail from for the next 6 months. Don't fill out the claim and leave the country and be like, hey, you guys close my claim. Because guess what? They're going to try to rock and roll on this claim and get you exams, because that's what these, what are they called? I don't know, the people that do the claims, right? Their job is to look at this, and if you qualify for an exam, they're going to order you an exam. Now, that exam may not work out in your favor, but you're going to get one, right? So you got to be smart before you get there. Email address. The information you give the VA is going to get stuck in their systems. Make sure it's the right information on this first document that you give them in every document afterwards. They even offer a change of address. You know, like, hey, this is going to change in 6 months. Communicate that with them, right? So on to page 10, are you homeless? They will assist you if you are homeless. There are VA benefits for homeless veterans, right? I'm not going to get into that here and now, but it doesn't hurt to be honest, right? The VA has things to help people, especially veterans and your family members and your children, but another video, another day. Okay, so exposure information. My claim's for PTSD, so I'm not going to worry about this today, right? So we're going to get down here. This is the most important page. If anything, you only need that first page with your name and social and personal information, right? And contact information. This page and the last page. Here, current disabilities. Now, this is where a lot of people get tripped up. Claim the condition as efficiently as you can, right? Mental health condition, right? PTSD, right? Depression, anxiety. List all the things that you believe you're suffering from. List all the conditions you have a diagnosis for or you're talking to a doctor about. Because guess what? you may put in a claim for PTSD, and I've seen this, and they're like, and this is what's crazy. When you get denied, or if you get denied, they'd be like, denied for PTSD, but hey, you have a diagnosis of depression. And you're like, well, what the F? They didn't rate me for depression, but they say I got a diagnosis for it. But then you got to think back, did you actually submit the claim for depression? Were you treated in service for depression? So maybe now, for your next claim, since you were denied, is to figure out how do you connect your current diagnosis of depression to something that happened in service, right? It's such a weird process. So when you're going for this condition, mental health condition, big umbrella, covers everything, right? Because they have to read every word you put on here as a claim for something. So if you're going big umbrella, mental health condition, number 2, PTSD, number 3, depression, number 4, anxiety. Who knows? What's the other one? Sleep disturbances, right? There's a bunch of other ones. Throw the spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks, right? Now the other boxes to the right, do the best you can, right? If it's from combat. If it's from harassment, if it's from, MST, sexual assault, give them the breadcrumbs to figure out what's going on. All right, at the bottom of this page, list the facilities, hopefully they're VA, that you're receiving medical treatment from, right? And when you sit down with those doctors, you need to think about, I'm going to be putting in a claim for mental health disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances. And when you're communicating with that VA doctor, realize that the rater rating this claim is going to see all those notes that the doctor put in there. Now, they're not always going to write what you want in their notes, but you can ask them questions. And the more you dig at your problem, you're going to figure out what's going on. But also, before you put your foot in your mouth, figure out and understand your medical condition yourself, what you're claiming, right? Learn about PTSD from combat or military service. Learn about depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, MST, so you can correctly convey what's been going on since service, right? Now, if your treatment's at a VA medical facility, you just write the name there, list the service dates that you've been getting treatment from, and they're going to have direct access to those. If it's at another medical facility, list that, and then they're going to need a release from you at another point. I forgot what that form is called. And then they're going to mail that to you. That's why your mailing address needs to be good. And you fill that out, send it back. They get the medical records. You get your exams. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, service information. If this is your first claim, fill this out the best you can. If you have a copy of your DD-214, they're going to get one through their systems, but you can send that in as well, right? Do your best to help them understand who you are. If you've already put in multiple claims, you might be able to skip most of page 12. And we're on to basically the end, right? Social Security, bank account information, because let me tell you, every time I put in a claim, I found out what my rating was by checking my bank, because the money would get to my bank faster than the award letter would in the mail. I'm talking by a week or two. It's crazy. So you might find out your claim got, granted, when you're like, hey, who put $27,000 in my bank account? What's going on? You're like, oh, my 2-year-old claim got rated. Nice. Okay. Then sign it. Always sign it. Don't forget to sign it. And if you signed it, check it, right? First page, personal information needs to be correct. The disabilities you want to claim needs to be thorough, right? Everything you want to claim. And make sure you sign it. Now, if this is your second claim and your banking information hasn't changed, I don't like putting that information anywhere, so I'm not going to fill that out, right? And these other pages aren't necessarily for you. If you're working with other organizations or people, it may have to do with them, right? And here's another page if you got more conditions than the first page allotted, right? So you can just keep adding it on. Okay, last part. I'm almost done. I know. Talking about putting a foot in my mouth. This is the other form that can really help out your claim, right? VA form 21-4138, right? Statement in support of claim. It's just an open document. You write the information you want the VA to have and observe, right? Because let me tell you how these claims go. When you go to this exam, okay, let's do it this way. You go put in your claim. You get your exams, right? The examiner doesn't have all the medical information that the VA had, even though they should be sending it to that medical examiner. So sometimes you would take a copy of what you got. When you're sitting in front of that examiner, you explain what's been going on the best you can. Now, the reason why this document here is important is that doctor isn't going to write down necessarily everything that you talk about, right? So what you got to do is on here, write a statement in support of your claim, right? Talk about, for me, I'm a combat vet. I would talk about what I witnessed on my tour in Iraq and how that's affected me to this day and how it continues to affect me every day of my life. Affects my kids, affects my wife, people I meet, right? Because that rater is going to look at your military history, your medical records, the CMP exam that you go to, but that rater is the one you use this form to talk to, right? Because they're the ones that choose, right? You could pop out in the middle. They probably have some computer program, and it's going to say 70%. Now, depending upon the evidence, they may push you down to 50. Or, if the evidence is outstanding, it may take you up to 100. I'm just telling you, there's some wiggle room in there, and the rater's the one that can make that choice. But you have to provide them with the evidence they need to support their decision, because those decisions are reviewed. Okay. I'm going to go over this stuff again. I just really like my simple knowledge about this VA process, being able to help somebody. Because I feel like a lot of people don't have help, and they look at this paperwork and they're just like, oh, goddamn. And it's not that hard, right? So I'll be back to talk again about this stuff, probably a different topic. I got other claims I got to put in. But, good luck. God bless. I'll see you next time.